Now I think I am unmuted. Greetings, 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 everyone. Thank you for being here with me. It is day 3 of our ancestral activation for Black liberation. And we're doing this all month long during Black History Month, Blackity Black History Month, activating our ancestors to come to show up, to support us, to give us their wisdom, to give us their protection and their guidance as we make our way through these interesting transitional times that we're in. Um, Let me just say off the at the beginning, I really would love for you, especially for this today, to have a water for libation and a candle if you can, and obviously matches so you can light the candle, and a notebook and pen. If you don't have any of those things, it's all good. Just ride with it, listen, um, and absorb the things that we talk about. But if you can grab those things while I chat it up a bit, that would be great. So again, all month long, we're doing this so that we can invoke our ancestors, our personal ancestors. So next week and the following weeks until the end of the month, we'll be working with community ancestors. But this week is about your people. It's about connecting with those who gave birth to all the people who gave birth that ultimately gave birth to you, people that you're connected to by blood. And even if you're adopted, you can choose to work with your adoptive family and your birth family or your birth family. The point is, those who know you and love you and that are on the other side have a vested interest in your well-being, in your elevation, in you thriving, in you just doing well and being healthy and moving forward. So we call them in and we pull them closer to help guide us. They're our first line of defense. They're our first line of counsel. And so we want to really activate them and call them in this first week before we move on. Well, we won't ever move on from our core, our blood relatives, our connected ancestors, but we continue to expand that network. We continue to expand that circle that we're surrounded by, that we're guided by, that we're protected by. Again, next week and the weeks beyond, when we get into sacred shield and sacred resistance and sacred restoration for weeks 2, 3, and 4. But again, this week is about sacred lineage, your peoples, calling them in and pulling them close. As I said this in previous videos, and I'm going to say it again in case you're new here, I'm going to be looking at my notes because this mind, she's good, but she'll go off on a tangent and forget what our initial point was. So we're going to keep it straight and keep looking down and making sure that I'm on point. So if all of that sounds good to you, feels good to you in terms of activating your ancestors, I encourage you to like and ring that subscribe and ring the bell so that you always know when I'm going live with these and any other content that I post. But also, and I've said this before as well, when you ring that bell and you get the notification that these ancestral activations are live, even if you can't join, that's a cue for you to take a moment, a pause for the cause, and you connect with your people. Have a conversation with your ancestors, call their name, pour some water on the ground, do something to acknowledge them, to give them light, to give them love, to give them honor. So again, even if you can't join, ring the bell, the subscribe and the bell so that you get alerts, and let that be a reminder to you to tap in with your people every day this week. So again, who am I? My name is Barbara. I am Barbara Ohuninifa, and I am an author, a coach, and a speaker. And I've been through a lot of things that required me to stick close to my ancestors. Even I didn't even know about them initially, went through most of my life without knowing that they were real energies that were protecting me. But when things got really hectic, I definitely had to stick close to them. In these last few years, maybe even close to a decade, I've definitely leaned on them and allowed their guidance to guide me, allowed their words and their wisdom to guide me. So I've been really thankful for that. And this work, my work, is always a part of that. So Beautiful, Powerful Love is the name of this channel. And everything I do here is really steeped in supporting Black women, in recognizing that we are beautiful, remembering that we are powerful, and being the love that we give out to everyone else waiting to get it in return, and sometimes we don't, or sometimes it's not quite with unconditional love, let's say that. But we are love. We have and possess the power, and we are the embodiment of beauty. So when we can understand that, when we can know that, when we can walk in that knowingness, that beingness, we can change the world, we can change our lives, or we can just be damn happy. How about that? So that's what my channel is about. And again, if that's your jam, subscribe. Now, this ancestral activation is not just for Black women, it's for all of us celebrating Black History Month, all of us descended from enslaved Africans in the diaspora, all of us who have ancestors that have been through the things that we are facing now. And we need to call them in so that we can understand how to move and how to navigate. So that's what this week and this ancestral activation is about. And that's who I am. So again, so today is about using storytelling as a pathway to ancestral veneration. Now, storytelling, we know that that is something that's very culturally relevant for us. That's something our people have done both on this land and on the continent, telling our stories, the oral tradition of passing down that wisdom by the stories that we share. Yesterday, we talked about using the senses to communicate, to either uh, uh, to connect or to receive information, to receive that connection from the ancestors. And it's way too much for me to try to recap here today and try to keep us within the timeline. So I definitely encourage you to go back and take a look at that. I'll link the video somewhere around here, wherever it shows up. And so you can get a chance to take a look at that. And again, like I said, next week we'll go into community ancestors. We'll actually start to activate some specific ancestors relevant to the theme of that week. But again, our people have to come first. So two things I do want to iterate from that I spoke about yesterday, and actually started with the first day and continued in. The first thing was the Alabama brawl. Just a reminder that that unknowingly started with ancestral activation. The sisters were there at that riverfront, that same riverfront. I believe it was the day or a day or two before the situation took place. So the ancestors were activated, and you saw how that turned out. And then George Floyd, we give thanks for his sacrifice and for his call out into the ethers when he called for his mama, when he was um, on the way to losing his life being taken from him, shall I say. And we elevate him, we give him thanks, even though he physically, his ancestors, and calling out for his mama in the way that he did was absolutely an ancestral activation. And while his life could not be saved in that moment, his name will forever be in our memories. And in a way, so he has eternal life through that. So we give thanks to him and his sacrifice and his call out into the ethers, into the universe, into his ancestors, to his mama, and the ancestral mothers responding, opening our eyes to what was happening in the world, what was happening to our people, and to see what happened to him. So his name has left a legacy for us, and we thank him for that. We thank him for his sacrifice and for his words. And then we have Sonia Massey. I won't go into all the details of what happened with her. We all know she was murdered in her home by a police officer. We know that there was, I mean, there's never any reason for it, but this was heinous. It was horrible. And we know in her final moment, she rebuked him in the name of Jesus. These are the words that came out of her mouth. Just as George Floyd yelled out, screamed out, pleaded for his mama, Sonia called in the name of Jesus to rebuke what was happening because she felt it coming. Now, although she may not have technically in her words activated an ancestor, sure and believe when she did that, when she said that, those are probably words she heard a grandmother or an elder in her family say. But even beyond that, when you look into her background and what has come out since then, or what came out around then, was that she had an ancestor that had been murdered in that same town and died. They say in that same hospital, but then I'm also seeing reports that he may not the lynching and the mutilation, I can't even say it right because it's so horrible what was done to him. I don't see how he have made it to the hospital, but the point was that the same vein of violence that happened to her had happened to one of her ancestors in the same place in the early 1900s. And so we lift her up. We say her name, Sonia Massey, and we thank her for her life. We thank her for her existence. We thank her for the sacrifice and for the words that she spoke. So my question is, when we think about the concept of storytelling and ancestral activation, what stories had been told about her ancestor? What stories had been shared fullness without shame about what happened to him? Was it a part of their family stories that they understood and knew? And this is not any criticism on that family or anyone if they hadn't actually talked about it, but it's the point around how important it is for us to understand our ancestral stories, for us to share what's happened to our people in our bloodlines so that we can understand the energy that's moving through us, the energy that may be still surrounding us, because clearly that energy was still surrounding that family in some ways. So, in telling our stories, in telling our family stories, we honor those who suffered. When we are ashamed of the stories, when we're ashamed of the pain we went through, it dishonors them. When we forget intentionally, it dishonors them. And oftentimes in our community and our people, we have been so traumatized by the experience of slavery, the experience of discrimination and torture and terrorism from Jim Crow um, and even through, I mean, we can name the different time periods, but Sonia Massey just happened last year. But we can get so steeped in the trauma of that that we don't even want to talk about it. We don't even want to deal with it. We keep secrets. We keep family secrets that actually harm us. We're able to distance ourselves from the pain of the story and the situation or whatever it was, but it's still there. So not telling it doesn't help it go away. It doesn't make it go away. It just makes us unaware of it. And and it's important for us to understand that telling the stories, as now we are in this time where our stories, our history, our contributions are there's an effort to remove them. There's an effort to erase them. We may be at a point where the only way to preserve our legacy, our culture, our history is for us to tell the stories in whatever way that means. And I don't just mean posting it on social media because that's still, it can be taken away, it can be altered. Write it down, create a book, have conversations with your family, tell the stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we can't hide from the fullness and the truth of all the things. And we already know how much harm has been done in our communities when we don't tell the truth, when we don't tell the full truth, when we don't tell the stories of what's happened to people. It's hard. It can invoke a lot of shame, but the reality is things that have happened to us are not our shame to carry. Emotionally, it will feel that way, but it's not our shame. The things that this country, this world, these people, the things that we've endured at the hands of others is actually their shame, not ours. But we have to tell the story or else we repeat history and it's upon us. So it's really important that we do that and that we connect. One of the things that I thought about when I was looking at Sonia Massey and her ancestors, one of the other thing that helps with the storytelling is that when we have an ancestor that's passed, whether it's recent or someone, that you dig up through your ancestry DNA work. Telling their story helps to uplift them. Years ago, a few years ago, I was in Brazil, and we went to visit a group of women. There's a name that's very specific in Portuguese, and I do not remember that name, but what it meant was the Sisters of Good Death. And this initially they were a secret society. They're not so secret now, but they were a society of women who their work, and the reason why it was of the Sisters of Good Death, you could imagine, just as horrible things happened to us here enslaved in the United States, horrible things were happening to our cousins in Brazil enslaved. And as people died, you could imagine dying in a way that was terrifying, dying in a way that was inhumane. And to leave this earth, to leave in that state of panic, in that state of terror, that's not a good death. It's hard to move on. If you watch the movie Soul, things that happen as we transition can stick with us and prevent us from going to the light, prevent us from, or not prevent our ancestors from fully releasing the trauma and the pain and the fears from being in this body and the things that they experienced. And they end up taking that with them. So this group of women, Sisters of the Good Death, they did the spiritual work for people that passed to help them release and to have a good death, to move to the light, to move forward. It's called different things in different traditions. You might think there's a Greek word, it's called psychopump, helping these departed energies, departed beings, our departed ancestors transition fully. So it's not just, oh, they did, they good. If there was terror and pain in the process of that, they need help releasing that. And part of that help, in my view, is telling their stories with love, saying their name with love. That helps to elevate them. And that's why the water, the candle, and all these things to help bring light to those that have gone beyond. And we thank all of them for their sacrifice. That's what all of this is about, thanking them for what they endured that enabled us to be here. Because if they didn't endure, how could we have, where would we be? Um, so we have to tell the stories. And as you can tell, this is a topic that's really, I mean, it can be heavy to even think about and to talk about. And so it's important that you have the tools both for your well-being and for the ancestors, but for your well-being to cleanse, to clear the space, to cleanse your own energy field, to cleanse your home, um, to be able to be in light and to go to nature to help to cleanse you as well. So those are all parts of that experience. And so today, that sacred power of storytelling and knows that wisdom. So it's not just about the pain that they experience, there's wisdom. And even in their stories, just like when you're in English class and you are told to read somebody else's story and do an analysis to understand what the overall theme and message was, do the same with your own family stories. When you look at and able to have those different stories from different generations and things that people experience, you can start to see a pattern and understand what that pattern is trying to tell you. But it's lost if you never even have the stories, if you never pass it down, if you never collect the stories. So that is another important part of it. And in acknowledging and honoring and storytelling, we honor our lineage. We honor what they've been through. We honor, and I keep using the word sacrifice because that's what it was. They didn't have to stay. They didn't have to be and endure what they endured and continue to have us and um, to procreate and to find a way to love in the midst of horrid conditions. And so we thank them for that by honoring them, lifting them up, and telling their stories. The other thing that storytelling does when it comes to ancestral veneration is, yes, you want to know what the truth is, what actually happened, what that ancestor did, what they experienced. Again, good, bad, and ugly, all of it. in totality, but it gives you an opportunity to rewrite the story, to say, all right, these things, these these horrible things happened, or they experienced that. How do we pivot that and rewrite the story? Not changing the facts of what happened, but going a layer deeper to get the meaning of it. Once you can get meaning from a situation, whether it's your situation or someone else's, it's no longer just pain and tragedy, it's wisdom. So by getting the stories, collecting the stories, telling the stories, sharing the stories of your family, your lineage, then you can say, what's a different way we can look at this? It wasn't just pain and torture. It wasn't just these horrible things. There was beauty in it. But first, you got to get through all the pieces of it. And I keep harping on this idea of pain because so much of our background, our time in this country has been steeped in pain, or our time, since being taken from the continent has been steeped in pain, with joy and moments of light and love along the way, because that is who we are as a people. But the idea of the understanding that we have to be able to look at that pain and look at the shadow and look at things that we've experienced and rewrite that story. That's the whole point I'm trying to get to in this. So again, if you've had a chance to get that water and notebook and pen, we're going to enter the altar room for the day. We're going to do a little meditation as we always do. I'm trying a new thing with some music, so let me know if you can hear me over the music. Hopefully, you will be able to. Um, yeah, and so we'll get into it on this day 3. So in the meantime, while I get things set up for in our altar room, and I'm going to go off camera as I usually do so that I can focus my energy in on making the connection and helping to guide us to and through the meditation and connecting with the ancestors. So have your water to pour the libation and a candle nearby if you can, or and also your notebook and pen because you're going to do a little bit of writing. But again, if you don't have any of those things, it's all good. Just sit and listen and absorb and just be with this information. Just be with the moment. Just be with your ancestors. Yes, yes. Okay. And as you get settled into a comfortable position, comfortable space, just start to take some deep breaths. You're going to breathe in, hold, and exhale. Allow yourself to relax. Allow yourself to release. Breathe in remembrance. Exhale forgetfulness. Breathe in love. Exhale shame. Breathe in truth. Exhale fear. Breathe in connection. Exhale separation. Just sit in that for a moment. We're going to start off with some libations. I'm going to do it with the way I typically do in speaking Yoruba, but you don't have to. Whatever words make sense to you. It's about coolness. Omi tutu, cool water. Ona tutu, cool road. Ile tutu, cool house. Ori tutu, cool head. Tutu egun, may our ancestors be cooled and refreshed. May the way be open and cooled and refreshed so that our communication with our ancestors is coming from a place of love, a place of light, a place of coolness from the highest peak of the mountain, from the highest peak of our consciousness, from the highest peak of our ancestors' consciousness. We give thanks. May they be cooled and refreshed. May we be cooled and refreshed. Okay. Amen. If you have your candle, you may go ahead and light it now. Think about the candle. The water has created space, has created that conduit between you and your ancestors. The candle lights the way for them, draws them closer. We give thanks and praise to our ancestors, our honorable ancestors of light. We call their names, all our honorable ancestors. Go ahead and call the names of your ancestors. You can start with maternal or paternal, whichever feels good to you. But we call their names so we remember and they remember. And to elevate them, we call their names. We call forth all of our honorable ancestors, names known and unknown, names known but forgotten. We call them forth. Keep breathing. We call forth our honorable ancestors, including those whose names were simply the vibrations spoken across the cosmic waters to create form. We call your name and we call you forth. And we give you love, we give you light, we give you elevation, we give you veneration, we give you gratitude. We thank you. Call your ancestors and breathe. Inhale and exhale. Release tension. Allow them to enter, allow them to come. Now imagine yourself sitting in front of a great fire, the kind that has burned for generations. Around you, your ancestors are gathered. They heard the call. They heard you call. They're always not far away, but when you call them specifically, they come closer. And they're all around you now. Some of them you know by name and maybe recognize. Others are unknown, but their loving presence is undeniable. You feel them. They have come to share, to guide you, and to help you uncover the stories that need to be told. They have come to help you remember fully who you are and who you come from. Take a deep breath. If you can, in your mind's eye, see an elder ancestor step forward. They have a book or a scroll, but more likely, they have their hands open, inviting you to receive what they have to give. This ancestor is the keeper of the stories of your sacred lineage. They are the garden of memory, your lineage memory. And they are here to share with you. You've called and they've answered. And now you say out loud or silently, ancestral storyteller, guardian of my lineage memory, I've called you. I call you now. I open my heart to the wisdom of my lineage. I am ready to receive. I am ready to hear. I am ready to listen. Without judgment, without fear, and without shame, I am ready to receive the wisdom that you have to share with me. I am ready to learn. I am ready to hear the stories of my ancestors. What stories do you wish to share with me today? Now, as you sit with this and continue to breathe, oftentimes in moments like this, we unknowingly hold our breath, continue to breathe. In this space, still surrounded by all those loving ancestors. The keeper of stories is before you, has heard your ask, and is imparting on you stories, the wisdom that you've asked for, that you're ready to receive. There is nothing that they will share with you that you aren't ready for. Release fear, release doubt, release shame. Take a deep breath. You may receive a vision or hear a name or a phrase, or maybe you only feel emotion, maybe a sense of joy or grief or determination and resilience. Whatever it is, whether it's something you see, something you hear, or something you feel, trust what comes. You've asked, and that guardian has answered. Trust. Even silence has meaning if you don't feel or hear or see anything. Trust. Take a deep breath. Take a moment to write, jot down, draw whatever came to mind, whatever came up, whatever came forward for you. If a story of strength appears, allow it to fill you with pride and joy, knowing that you carry that same resilience, that same wisdom. If a painful story emerges, know that you are the one chosen to bring healing to this lineage. This is why it's so important to understand all the stories, to be open to receiving the stories. Take a deep breath. Sit with that for a moment. When you're ready, let them know. Say this out loud. I honor the stories of my ancestors. I honor you and I honor your stories, the ones known and unknown, the ones spoken and unspoken. I receive your wisdom, ancestors, with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. May I carry forth that which strengthens me, and may I bring healing to that which needs to be restored. Thank you. Ashe, amen, and so it is. I give thanks for my ancestors. Take a few final breaths. Well, they're not final. You're going to keep breathing. Take a few deep breaths and allow this connection to settle. Doing this periodically will give you the space to process will give you the space to receive. And as you grow stronger, as you grow more open, they're able to share more with you. And they know it's not a one time and that you'll never ask again. You'll never be ready to hear more again when they know this is something that you're requesting. They'll share more. If things get heavy, go in nature. Be near water. Let nature help you to cool and calm and to settle whatever has had to come and flow through you. And let the flame help guide the stories, guide the ancestors, and bring light to you all. Take a deep breath and give thanks to your ancestors as you close out that connection. Let them know you'll be back to sit at their feet and hear the wisdom from your own lineage, no one else's, yours. When you're able to, here are a few journaling prompts to help process what comes out of these connections, out of these moments. What ancestral story gives you strength? How does it inspire or guide you? What story in your lineage carries pain or stories? How can you bring healing to it? Are there any forgotten or hidden stories that you need to reclaim, that you feel called to reclaim? Again, Black families have often a lot of secrets, a lot of untold stories. You may be the one who is to reclaim those stories so that they can be healed. Explore that within yourself. You may already know of some family stories that could be reframed, that could be healed. Which story would that be? If you could rewrite or reframe one family story, what would it be? Take some time to journal through these, to sit with yourself through them, to help you understand more of your sacred lineage, more of that which resides within you to give you strength, and perhaps even what your assignments are as you continue the ancestral legacy, because one day you too shall be an ancestor. Take a deep breath. So, we've engaged in a little storytelling practice so that we can honor our ancestors and help to venerate them. A few things you can do is, I've basically been saying it the whole time, share the family stories. Our time of keeping secrets, we're done. Share the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. No one can take that away. And if there are things that need to be healed, know that you are probably the one that is to heal it by healing yourself. But you can't know what to heal until you can face what needs to be healed, until you can face and hear the stories. And it doesn't have to always be heavy work. Maybe it's a piece of art. Maybe it's just doing a family tree. And maybe that family tree gets to be a little chaotic because there were things that people didn't talk about in terms of whose children are who and all things like that. Tell the truth and let it be something that is both truthful but also inspiring. And again, it doesn't have to be only heavy work. make it something that's relevant for you. In those stories, you may find that someone truly was an artist or a poet or a writer. And so telling that story means you write a poem or you literally make a new fable. Be creative with it, but keep the stories and pass them along and have conversations, talk about it. And again, if a story requires healing, think about how to write a new version of it um, that really shows what the beauty, the love, the lesson in it was. Sit with that until that emerges for you. And as you engage in that practice, just think about every story that you tell. And, this is coming from someone, an author. So writing the stories and writing and telling the stories. Again, being a speaker and a writer, whether it's in written form or it's spoken, super important. I don't even know who may have been a writer or a speaker in my family, but the way they be on me about I'm doing the work that they didn't have the opportunity to do because they couldn't write books. They couldn't publish books. They couldn't get online and speak to people in this way. So I'm living out their dream, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful that they keep guiding me towards that. So find what that is for you and to connect and tell those stories. And when you do so, know that you are giving them light. You are giving them elevation so that they can be closer to you and work harder with and for you and through you. It's a two-way street. Tell the stories. And with that, as always, until next time, take good care of you. Peace.